the first place, I think we really have to thank Ombudsman for not only doing this wonderful journey that he did, but also for opening this second day of this event. And I think it's a great honor to have had here the Council of the Mayan Itzas willing to do this particular ceremony with us, as I understand, for the first time. That is also very unique. And Hamas also asked me to bring the gratitude to Joki van Dieten, who was willing to put ET here as a part of the ceremony, and he feels very honored that that was possible.
Thank you, and in luggage, see you again.
Before we continue with the program, we will have a 15-minute break. In the first place, not to have too tough of a transition. In the second place, because new people are coming in and realize we start with the lecture, so it's good to have a bathroom break if you need it. 15 minutes, and please. And begin with the usual deeper in and exhalations to sink into being again in this here, in this now. Surrendering yourself into the field that has been created already, that we continue to co-create together, continue to build up together. And while you sink in, feel your heart again. Your heart is the place of choice, because only your heart can tell you what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. So let your heart be the guidance during the rest of the day, so that whatever you take in really belongs to you. That it will enrich you, and that it will help you on your journey to express even more of the beauty that you are already expressing. And approach everything that is happening in that way, every person you speak with, every person you listen to, every person you give something. Feel in everything that is actually your heart that is speaking. Feel through your heart a connection with everyone present in this room. And again, bring back the awareness that everything you think, everything you feel, everything you do will have an effect throughout the grids, all over the earth and into the cosmos. Holding this space in your heart, slowly bring back your awareness back to the room. Feel your feet again. And know you're ready for the rest of the journey. Open your eyes and be ready for the next presenter. And who is the next presenter? Dael Walker. Dael Walker, I said yesterday that the person that started, Stephen Mailer, was one of the older research scientists of crystal skulls. I can say the same thing of Dael. I think those two both were trained by Nick and have a background of a long history of working with, in his case, crystals and crystal skulls. Because Dael is also the director of the there's a Crystal Awareness Institute, has written a couple of books on crystals, and actually is in the preparation of 2 more books. He also has a passion, and I'm absolutely sure that you will know what his passion is after you have followed this lecture. So he is not yet completely ready. So one moment.
My name is Dael Walker. I have been involved with crystal skulls since I did the first research on Mitchell Hedges' skull in 1985. That's a long time. And I have to admit, I'm hooked. You think crystals become addictive, and they are. When crystals attack you in the pocketbook, you always talk about the one that got away, the one that you didn't buy. Skulls are even worse. They grab me by the throat and say, I'm going to take you somewhere. You're going. I've had skulls tell me they want me to take them to the different indigenous groups around the world, the natives, what they call the earth people, the ones who honor the Mother Earth. And so I've traveled with Rainbow especially in 9 different countries. And in the United States, I've introduced her to at least 15 different tribal elder groups. Now that's what you call directing you to do something. And she does it with sweetness, where one of my other skulls will tell me to just do it. When I first began involved with the skulls, working with the Mitchell Hedges skull, we had a problem. Our leader, Nick Nocerino, said, I know there's something in this skull, we just have to work to get it out. And so we worked until we found a certain code that had to do with light, color, sound, and mind, meditation, prayer, mental activation, imagination. Use your words for it, but it was a code. Just like like a telephone number is a code. It gets you to a specific place. But it was more like a computer code that activated the graphics, that images came up into a perfectly clear piece of quartz, and suddenly images were there. Now, that's not the first time. If you saw the video by Nick Nocerino, he talked about scrying, or crystal gazing, where you're allowing the power of the reflective surface to open up your inner eye, and you begin to see things clairvoyantly. That's psychic awareness. What we did had nothing to do with that. What we did was activate a computer to bring up images which we then photographed. Now, I need to be able to put it on the screen. Oh. Boy, that's fast. You guys are great. I just think I want it on the screen, and there it suddenly was. Let's see. Come up here for a second and show me what I just did. I was trying for that was what I was trying for, and I hit the wrong button. Perfect. Good.
But you can go out, if you stand, you can walk around and...
Yeah, then I'll come back to here. I just want to show you a little bit. Can we take up this overhead light? When I first looked at this skull, I saw it had some unusual properties, or as to say, it was different in very significant ways. For instance, it has heavy ridges over the eyebrows. You get an opportunity to come and see it. You see that right here, there's a heavy ridges over it. The human of today don't have that. But the probability is Neanderthal man did, Homo erectus did, but not humans. So why was this made with a pattern that had heavy eyebrows? Good question. Maybe it was not patterned after a human at that time. There always comes the question, how old are these crystal skulls? Well, you have a problem. Age dating is a process they call carbon-14 dating, in which the decay rate of the carbon-14 isotope is a very specific rate. And they can tell how much it's decayed according to how much radioactivity is still left into it. Only problem with quartz is it's silicon and oxygen. There is no carbon. So you cannot date a piece of quartz. And truthfully, the quartz doesn't care. If you've got forever, what do you care about dating? That's a human thing, isn't it? Because we have a short time span, so time is very important to us. But what you can say is, okay, if I have certain patterns in the skull and ridges over the top, tells me maybe this was modeled after something that had ridges over the bone skull. So maybe it was Neanderthal, maybe it was Homo erectus. My mind leads to Homo erectus because it fits a lot of other patterns. But there are some unusual things about the eyes. You might notice that these are not just normal eyes. It's kind of like a luminous effect. Later on, as you watch the slideshow presentation, you're going to see one or more of the eyes simply disappear, and something else appears in its place. Now, how is that possible? Well, whoever designed this thing polished everything around the crystal skull. All over here is all highly polished, but in the interior of the eyeball, it's a dull finish. Now, if it's exactly the circumference of the eyeball, and everything is polished all around, it wasn't an accident. Especially not when both of them are the same thing. So the person who made this, or individuals who made this, must have had some optical reason for doing it, since this creates certain optical effects. So now, if you're going to be a skull researcher, it depends on the type of skulls you're working with. I'm involved with both clear and non-clear skulls, that is to say, those with a clarity that you can see through it or not. The clear ones, like any polished surface, hold images better. That's how you do the clairvoyant viewing anyway, is to work on a polished surface. So, they had a reason for doing it. When I'm working with it, I want to know my reasons for everything. What I like to work with more than anything else are the recorder skulls. Now, we have two major recorder skulls that have quantum energies and tremendous amount of images inside it. But I find the images in certain areas. Sometimes you'll see something like this in the ear. Now, when you look at the skull, this looks like it's been carved, and it almost looks like some kind of curved building with an antenna array, something that you might find in NASA. It also could look like, here's a problem I have to share with you right now. It's why looking at these images becomes as much of an art as it is a science. Because these images are stored inside of images, around images, intruding in images, and hidden images. I have no idea why they did it that way, but I think they did it just to drive us crazy. You'll find images in the eyes. Here's something up here which continuously, throughout this whole process of working with crystal skull, we run into something that looks like some type of craft. Now, we stretch a little bit to make it that, but nevertheless, I keep seeing them, and if I take this picture 10 times, is maybe 5 or more times that will not appear. So taking pictures of an image, you want to verify it, so maybe the next day you take exactly the same shot. And you do this over and over again, maybe 100 times, and you find something interesting. The damn thing keeps changing its images. And it doesn't care that it's driving you crazy. You'll find them in the nose area, which becomes something like some type of building complex. You'll find images stored up in the top. Now, what is that golden image at the top here? It looks like some type of animal. It looks like it could be a woman with fish tails. This is her head right here. You want to start looking for images of people, you look for 2 eyes and something like a nose or a mouth. Because our eyes are accustomed to seeing things and organizing things according to the sensory processes we have. And our brain becomes a translator for what we see. But if it looks at something that's hidden, at first it doesn't recognize it because the translation's not connecting. But then if you do this a couple of times, suddenly your eyes adjust, there's more data involved into it, you start to see pictures. You will find this out continuously as we go through this particular process. I find images at the top. I find images as you turn around and do a sideshow. We'll show images at the base, at the top of the back of the skull. We find images in the teeth. If you look at this, all the teeth should look like this. Just a blank thing. I mean, what are teeth? They're just white things, or in my case, a little bit darker than white. It's called 76 years old. It'll do that to you. Now, yet, here we look like we're looking at a whole group of different monitors, and different images are in it. If you look at this, see it? It's different. And we start to see things down here which while before, a group of houses, almost like stone buildings, and a forest around it. Here's another building inside of a forest area. Yet, if you look at the skull, you don't see that. It comes when you start working with photographing it. And another thing that's going to happen, you'll see this more and more and more, and I'll point it out to you, is the normal convex, rounded outward teeth design suddenly goes concave and goes the reverse. I asked my photographer friends why, and they say, beats the hell out of me, or words to that effect. So let's take a little walk through. If you turn, bear in mind, here's what a researcher does. You want to make sure you cover every possible avenue because there are no precedents for doing this. There's no books, there's no teachers, there's no anybody. You have to experiment, so you do everything you could think of. So I took a series of shots, 10 shots at a time. I took a 45-degree angle turn, every one at first was face on, then turn one side and go 45 degrees. You go 8 shots that way. Then you shoot from the top and the bottom, and you have a series of 10. And you do that from one particular focal point. Maybe I'm a foot away. All right, then you go back or forward until you find something else that appears. That's a second focal point. Because these images appear at different focal points on your camera. It's just another way to drive you crazy, that's all. You're trying to figure out Well, you know, it should be just nice and neat, like a wedding album. Good luck. As you go, can you work the thing while I point up here? I'll just wave my hand at you and you'll do the magic word and touch your finger on it. Just hang on at this one now. If you start looking at this one, everybody see this okay? You notice this one, it was shot with the same clarity, and in fact, here's another skull up here that we work with, and you can see that that's pretty detailed. But this one, for whatever reason, began to expand in the light itself. It became lighted up more than the focus started with it. But I'm getting things in this one eye that wasn't there before. That eye is not clear. We showed that very much. Where is the other eye? Well, actually, it's way over here, and it becomes like a cave, and you'll see that later. Things begin to open up in the cranial area, the upper area, and there's something going on here, and there's something going on in the nose area because the nose area suddenly disappeared, that nice triangle area. Where is it? It disappeared. Why? Well, we'll look and see. Let's go to the next shot. So I'm looking at it with different light. I'm looking at it from different distance. And I begin to see now that the teeth are getting even more detail, especially down the lower teeth. But now we're getting some stuff coming down underneath the teeth. Later on, this looks something like a train wreck that's been burned. You'll see what I mean later. But here the nose came back. And this looks like a very big ear here, doesn't it? Well, that's not the ear, that's one of the eyes. But why is it coming out like this? It's just something that happens with the photography. Here is something that, once again, you have to start looking at it more carefully, but you'll find out it's a lady with long black hair, slender waist, a long dress. And she appears in this area, and she appears sometimes in this area. She is the high priestess that runs this crystal. Now, after working on probably more than 50 skulls, I've come to a conclusion that you can almost bracket them in certain titles, if you want to, or certain groups. One of the most popular, you see the most of all, are what I call ritual skulls. And these skulls are usually made and or used for ritual purposes by the different groups that have kept them with them. They have their own consciousness, but it isn't a high priestess or priest that's inside it. The master skulls, which have a different purpose altogether than the ritual skulls, of which, there I did it again. Can you get me back? Oh, thank you. Good. I've got a little thing here that's multi-purpose, and my thumb can't figure out what it is. So, you have the master skulls. The master skulls have been around for a long period of time. Now, like you, I'm asking how much? So I went to Barbara Marciniak and her group, the Palladians, which are a pretty good channeling group, and said, how old is this skull? And they said, maybe 300,000 years old. Now, it just means that she's been around a long time, traveled a lot, and all the master skulls are recorders of one type or another. They aren't always clear. They can be any material at all, but they have a purpose which they will do whether you like it or not. Most crystal skulls are that bossy anyway, but I'm telling you, these guys are really nasty. They know what they want to do. They come here for a specific purpose, and their purpose is as solid as a rock. Come on, that wasn't too bad.
Sometimes the people on the other side might want you to point on that one to the other side.
Yeah, I will. It doesn't show up on the other side. I'm going to walk back and forth between these and say the same thing to you guys. you're looking at the eyes themselves, but they become something else. The nose changes, but there are images that appear inside of it, and the images change. You get a lot of activity in the teeth themselves. It's like super monitors. And there's the high priestess. She comes in different forms. There's one form which I may not have in this sequence, but she comes as a dancer, almost like those old burlesque dancers with the high kicking legs. You know, it's really quite a neat picture. Now, let's go to the next one. Once again, look at the eyes. And can you see this shape right here with two eyes, a very strange looking nose and almost no mouth, bald head? Can you see that? Let's take a look on the other side as well. Can you see it?
I'm doing it over there.
Good.
Yeah, so you don't need to do it over there.
Okay, good.
Just do it there.
Point it out when I do it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you doing that, Ray. So, images start to appear back here. Here's the eye, here's the nose, here's the mouth, and there's something here, either that's hair or something like headdress. See, once again, stretch your imagination. I'm asking you, I'm telling you, this is not scientific proof. Don't expect that. But look at the cumulative effect of all of these image changes and realize just a shift in lighting or a movement of the direction of point of the face cannot account for them. There's just too much of it. And we have hundreds of photos. Now, once again, the teeth are looking different, mostly rounded out. Both of these are starting to go. Here is a pyramid appearing. Certainly that wasn't in the teeth itself. See the design? You start looking for something different, something that wasn't there originally. Now you notice she stopped showing off. Must have pulled her window down. But there's another group that's opened up here. In really dark lighting with shining up on the screen, we begin to get even more details than you can here. You just have to stretch your imagination and see what you get. But there's an opening coming up here. Next picture. Now we get something else. This is an eye. Somewhere, this is an eye. But this is almost like exploded and has this long, curved pathway, which at one time, in one picture, which I may have in the sequence or not, there's something that looks like a vehicle coming down it. I think that's really a stretch of my imagination, but what the heck. Many times you will see aquatic beings. This looks like a dolphin. There are a lot of dolphins in these pictures. Here's another picture, but this is another skull. Can you see it? The eyes, the nose. That's a skull. Here's another thing about the master skulls. They all have images of other skulls in them. Now, that tells me they are linked, connected by light waves directly to all the other skulls, which we have no idea how many skulls are going to be eventually because they're coming out in great waves now, which tickles me to no end. Since I started off, there was just Mitchell Hedges' skull, Shannara, and Rainbow for a long time until others started to come out. But what is this coming here? And you're going to see something change about this area. You'll see something interesting. Next picture. Now, we change a little bit, put a little bit of a yellow light underneath the light box, a yellow filter, a gel, and it begins to change things. It really makes a significant difference in the teeth. Now we start looking at Where did these hollow teeth come from, going in inward instead of outward? And what is this area down here? Eventually you start to see people laying down like this is an accident of some type. Here's a face right here, 2 eyes, a nose, looks like a mustache, dark, with maybe a slight beard part. Can you see that? But he looks like he's got red hair at the top, which is crazy. Red hair at the top and black hair. Could be very dark brown hair at the bottom. Once again, there's something interesting here. It looks like one of those old knights, the 2 eyes right here in the nose or mouth. Nose here, mouth here. Can you see that? After a little bit, your eyes are going to start looking for the images, and suddenly you'll start to see them appear. But right up here is an eye. And here is that opening, but it's different than it was before. Instead of being like a pathway, it's more like a forest or a mountainous area. And images are starting to appear in the cranial area, the lower area. They're starting to appear down here. This is a group of people sitting around a table. See, here's a person, here's a person, there's a person. I see these things because, man, I've looked at them for hundreds of times. It takes a little bit of a stretch, but once your eye thinks, well, maybe that could be, then suddenly everything shifts. And once again, the images change in the teeth. And also this area between just above the teeth. Next picture. Now, this is very intriguing because there's no particular reason why these teeth should light up and none of the others light up. Yet they do. Here again, we have the pyramids, if you want to think of it that way. And it looks like to me there are 2 of them, one behind the other. Here is the face. Here's the eyes, the nose, thick lips. Looks like might be African, but this is either long hair or a long headdress of some type. And pictures inside of pictures. There are people going up the steps. And if they're doing it correctly, they're probably heading for this cave. Over and over again, we see people going in and out of caves. And then we also see a lot of cases where there are natural disasters, such as earthquakes, volcanoes erupting, flooding. And it looks like the people are getting in the caves to get away from all that, because they always go up toward the mountainous areas. Just pointing out some areas which you could see if you were spending time at it. Let's take the next one. Okay, now, this begins to look a little interesting. It has a certain familiar saucer shape. Can you see it? Isn't that intriguing? You can actually see that image in the skull. It's come up so many times it finally stayed out. Did this with here we go. What I'm wondering is, where did this Cobra helicopter end up coming from? Any of you vets, take a look at that and that tells you what it is. It's a Cobra. And there's something here on it's 6 wheels and it's traveling up a hill. I don't know what that is. And we have something over here very interesting. There's a face. There's 2 faces merged together, one on this side and one on this side. Later on, we'll look a little closer in this area, and maybe you'll see another type of craft. Next. Here, this begins to become more like a building rather than like a craft. You keep seeing sea mammals of some type, and sometimes what looks like people with fish legs or fish fins. And something here coming out of this opening. Kind of looks scary to me. And you have somebody over here who's dressed, it looks like in native type of clothing, and carrying something in to go into this area. You imagine taking one photograph and continuing to see enough images, you suddenly realize you've gone 3 or 4 hours and you still want to do more time with one picture. And I have maybe 800 or 900 pictures. Sometimes I even take time to eat. Sleep is a maybe yes, maybe no. Next picture. By the way, you notice a change in the color again. We went to a light orange gel, and you change the colors, you change the images, which led us to believe that maybe these are stored on holographic bands of light. So I was showing a show in San Jose, California, and after the show, this gentleman came up to me and he says, how do you think they stored these images? Not were these real or not. He was obvious that he was in belief that these were real images that came out. I said, well, I told him, we think it was recorded on bands of light because we have found that we can actually separate sometimes layers of images on top of images. He said, I'm the vice president of research in a major Silicon Valley corporation, a company. We've been working for the past 5 years on a method to store information on bands of light. I looked at him and I kind of little chuckle and I said, looks like somebody beat you to it. Next picture. Now, reverse, well, there we go. Thank you for catching it. Here we go. Now, once again, we're changing the viewpoint of the skull itself from, remember I did the 45-degree changes? So each time I did that, I haven't done it in the sequence because I wanted to show them in a different way, but this is a result of looking from the other side. We've been looking on this side over here. Now we're looking back here, and we find this area up by the lower area, upper area of the cranial area is opened up, and all kinds of things happen. In later pictures, it looks like it's an old mine shaft or an old cave, and people are going in and out of it. Right up on the top is another type of sea mammal, maybe a whale, maybe some type of sea dinosaur. Can't get enough really clarity to identify it specifically, but it looks like it. And the teeth change. Now here we start to, the light is coming out in this upper teeth, but they're not, they are convex or curved outward. And the last time we looked at them, they were curved inward with the light when it was on the other side. Drives you crazy, people, let me tell you. Trying to figure out, what do you have? And when you looked at it the next time, you could swear the pictures changed, but they didn't really change so much. It's just that your ability to view them changed. And the ritual you used, or method of prayer, or whatever you'd use to open it up, if you change your process, you change the code, you change the images that come up into it. And we're working on things with sound. And I was in England a couple of years ago, and there was a man playing a really nice flute. I said, let's try something. I had my skull there. I took some pictures of the skull, had him play the flute for about 4 or 5 minutes, took pictures again, and they were different. Not significantly different, big difference, but there were definitely differences between the two, which says the sound probably changed the image. Next. Okay. Once again, we're changing the colors a little bit. Now we're getting into more of an orange. And it's a very slick-looking material, almost like a very highly polished surface or a metallic surface. Later, when you get into the greens and the blues, you'll find that it gets very metallic. For whatever reason, those variations of green and blue become very metallic. This is a kind of a light orange or maybe a pinkish orange. We tried every combination of gels I could do it just to find out what would work with it. Now, what I find intriguing, however, is what is this? Is this some type of craft? It sure looks like something. And if this is an eye, and this is an eye, and this is a nose, and this is a mouth with fangs, hey, I didn't make it up, it's there. But now you see why I'm excused from being a little batty because I've got a reason for it. But the teeth, look at the teeth. What happened to the teeth? Suddenly you have 8 of them which are concave, and the images are there. And they are different. Here's just 2 of them that don't have images. Everything else has them. And something else is going on around here. This looks like a part of a forest shot from up above, like a plane was flying over. And there is a hidden face right here. Here's an eye, here's an eye, here's a nose. And some kind of a bearded face, an ugly looking guy, I tell you. He says, I got a message from my skull and I'm not going to tell you what it was. Shame on me. But here's another very interesting shape that could be some form of craft. Next. Now we changed the angle a little bit. It's pretty much the same colors. But look what happened to the teeth. They almost disappeared. Why? It's not that much difference. We're shooting with almost everything the same. We just changed the angle, shooting the other side, and the teeth disappeared. Except something is coming out of these teeth and feeding into the outer area. Where are the eyes? What happened? There's one of them. Is this an eye? Looks like some type of a ball. However, if that's an eye, and that's an eye, and that's a nose, and this is the lips, you have some type of an alien. Around a bunch of other things. This is why I say getting into decoding these things is a lifelong process. It's not an easy thing to do. Look at the ocean or the rivers flowing through. These are buildings around it. There's a lake. Next picture. Go to yellow. What happened? Well, now the teeth changed again. This is not the same as it was when you did, this is the first picture, right? The first picture of the whole sequence was this, only it was natural, it was not colored. We put a light underneath it, and we put a color filter, and look at all the differences in the teeth. Look at the area below here, which before that had some other things that looked like a wreck. Now you've got activity going in these multiple pyramids. Here's a pyramid, here's a pyramid, here's a flat top pyramid, which you see much more common in Mexico. 10? 5 minutes? Next picture. Boy, what happened? We go to a red and you start to get more images. We also did, to add to it, we added a red cloth to put underneath it so it absorbs from there. Just areas that you could look at. And once again, all the teeth are concave. except one at the bottom here, that was slightly convex. Next picture. This now really looks like another craft. This, you can't see it clearly, but if you looked at the skull in the right light, you can see it even today. More stuff around the teeth, because as I mentioned, those are particular areas. And here's one that looks like some type of an encampment with either tents or these rounded buildings. Next picture. When you go in close and you start to look at that area, this is the area of the back of the brain. Look at the people. See the guy standing right here with a dark coat on? Right here. And people standing here, and people standing here, and people over here, and people back here, and people back here. And there's a skull right here. That's the first time I've seen that one. Always something new. Never get bored with the skulls. Next picture. Go into green. It looks very stony, almost a frosted color, but more metallic than anything else. And all of the stuff around it changed. New images came in, new images here, new images here. Here's a whole group of people, a whole group of people. And there's another kind of a fish mammal of some type. Go ahead. A little different angle, but everything really begins to change. And this is not the same image as the one just before us. And you've got all these here, and you've got stuff going here, and you've got more stuff coming out here, and stuff. It's just stuffed with stuff. Oh, come on. That wasn't too bad. Well, maybe it was too bad. Then, see, the nice thing about it being too bad is I can lay claim to being a person who deliberately sets it up, but I wouldn't do that to you. Okay, next picture. Then we're going to close this off pretty quick. You start to get into oranges, and it becomes indeed very fiery. There's a later picture with my wife's skull. When you see it, she may have one that shows a volcano erupting. Next. Change the angle. Change the images. Next. Red almost disappears. You can't get much images. However, do you see any golden yellow anywhere in the room around it or underneath it? Yet, where did that come from? Still haven't figured that one out. Next. Once again, look at the activity behind the teeth. There's a whole bunch of things going on. Okay? I want to show this one right here because this one is just a few degrees short of being face on. But now you have a volcano that's erupted. It's flowing down into a pool of lava. And you don't see this at all in the skull, nor do you see it in any other picture other than this one. Why did that come up? It's just to show that there are major earth changes that these skulls chronicle. Okay? That's it. Too bad I don't have a couple of hours to tell you more about it. I can just tell you this. There will be coming a time we're doing work now to try to make the logistics work into it. It means we're going to have people who in my area that's going to volunteer to come over and process. But those of you who are interested in becoming a part of checking on the different things, we can send you pictures of the rainbow skull or madre skull. And I would like to know if you can see the images, if you can, and make a report on it. What's going to happen is things are going to happen inside you if you do this. Be aware, or beware, or both. The skulls are not here to play with you. They're here to make a change in you. over and over and over again. I have 17 ancient crystal skulls I work with, and I can tell you every single one's got the same message. They're coming here to help humanity to raise their vibrations into the new changes already taking place in the earth right now. Yay. There are more earth changes going on right now than we've ever recorded in history. How many times have you ever heard of 26 hurricanes in one season? We used to think it was a really big thing if we got one. And tornadoes. I remember as a kid seeing a tornado, thinking, wow, that's something. I said, yeah, it comes around about every 3 or 4 years. What, they had, what, over 20 tornadoes in one area? What's going on? There is a change. This is the time of Kali. The old has to leave, the new comes in, and that means change is taking place. If you want to become part of it, then one of the things you can do is connect to the skulls. Either touch a skull, have a session with a skull, which is another thing altogether. I don't suggest necessarily you do sessions with skulls. You might get hooked. I mean, if you have further questions, we're running out of time, so I will be over at our booth at the end of the table where the lights are. I'll be happy to answer any questions you can. I want to thank you very much. You have been a fantastic group.